launch your campaign and launch the manifesto, there is one initiative which has gained some level of popularity, the 24-hour economy initiative. Even with that, there are some who believe that the NDC has not been able to explain this whole policy very well to Ghanaians. Is it a communication challenge? What really is the 24-hour economy all about?
I don't really know where that part is coming from regarding
there are a lot of people who do not really understand what the 24-hour economy is.
I would say, for example, that organized union understands that very well. In fact, one of the most, should I call it, one of the highest endorsement of that 24-hour economy is actually coming from organized union, where the Secretary General of the TUC lauded the policy. And he's not the only one. So many different groups have lauded the same policy. You must appreciate that it's a political season. So naturally you get your opponents, after they did everything possible to say that that is not even a policy that will make a lot of inroad, the next thing they try to do is to see whether they could find a way to create some kind of mockery. It's okay. What matters is to be able to make sure we continue explaining the process. It's not a difficult process to explain at all. We're talking about it's an economy that has got massive potential across so many levels. And what it is we need to do is to see how we can incentivize our capacity to be able to produce more in order to meet clear demand that exists. Now, so we're talking about the fact that you now put policies in place that ensures that, for example, if you're producing 100, you can actually increase that 100 to 200 by ensuring that you use what you call your tariff system as an incentive. You use your tax system as an incentive. That's simple. It's not rocket science. You know, you use your procurement system to be able to generate and incentivize demand for what is being produced. Remember, government is what you call one of the highest what you call spenders in our economy. Now, so if government decides as a question of policy that we're going to ensure that our major expenditure is going to be for goods that are produced by actors in our own economy, that clearly brings about massive demand for what is being produced. Right. And if you're incentivizing this production unit in order for them to be able to supply more to meet that demand, that becomes a win-win scenario, especially in a country where there's so much what you call untapped capacities in the agricultural sector, in the manufacturing sector, and in the commercial sector. It can be done. So I don't think there is really an issue at all. Don't fall for the typical NPP gimmicks, creating impression.
This is not an NPP gimmick.
Oh, I'm talking about it's NPP gimmicks.
Even for communication professionals and experts.
No, I think it's an NPP gimmick.
They still feel that there's
seeking clarification. Seeking clarification is one thing. Seeking clarification is one thing. Policies can always be asked for clarification. But I'm talking NPP gimmicks in terms of a lot of some of what you heard about the fact that the whole thing doesn't make any meaning and so on. That's all a gimmick coming from the opposition NPP.
Right, so this policy will be both public sector, private sector. And the public sector is going to increase employment, which means that our wage bill is going to increase. One of our problems...
What do you mean by public sector, by the way?
I mean, you're going to increase employment in the public sector, say at the ministries, at the passport office, at the DVLA. You want to employ more people to work 24 hours, right? Is it not going to increase our wage bill, which has been one of the major problems of the Ghanaian economy, and a huge public sector.
Yeah, but you must make sure, you must appreciate where we're coming from. First, we're talking about areas where we're talking about clear economic production. Right. So, for example, we're talking about what goes on, for example, in the ports, in the harbors. Those are areas where you clearly can do far more. Okay? Other areas, even though it's under public, it's much more economic in nature. That's your number one emphasis. Okay? Then after that, you are ensuring that you do as much as possible in the private sector, where a lot more. So the aim of it is actually to be able to increase employment in places where clearly there is capacity to employ more. That's really what the whole plan is. And I believe that it's something that if you check the literature in countries that have already started, it does a lot of what you call transformation for economies, and I believe Ghana is capable of getting that done.
I mean, someone said that we are already running a 24-hour economy somewhat because of digitization. So we do not need another 24-hour economy because we're doing that already.
How are we doing that?
So, for example, you can stay in your house and buy electricity with mobile money. So you do not necessarily have to go to an ECG office to buy prepaid.
That's a complete trivialization of a very serious conversation. Because if I'm talking about a manufacturing concern, that works maybe up to, let's say, 6 p.m. And as a result of a tariff arrangement and a tax arrangement, they are now able to have what you call an additional shift that is producing across all the way to the morning. It's a complete serious conversation away from talking about buying digitization, and that's totally trivializing the conversation.
All right, so apart from the 24-hour economy, you've also been talking about a new capital, a commercial capital. Where are we likely to have this new commercial capital?
I prefer to wait until when we formally launch our manifesto. Then we can go into policy conversations. I prefer that. I don't want to run ahead of the launch of manifesto where details regarding all these different policies are going to be properly fleshed out. So don't worry, we're going to have a lot more opportunity. We can go into that. You understand? But in the meantime, we can talk about what's going on in the country, what's our view regarding the solutions are. I prefer that we can focus increasingly more on that. Yes.
Right. So if you win the 2024 elections, you're going to be supervising an economy which is struggling. What would be your short-term measure in bringing back the economy, in helping tame inflation? I mean, you've been a deputy minister of finance before. During your time, you had one of the longest periods of a single-digit inflation. What would be the strategy to tame inflation in the short term? Because the prices of goods and services are becoming very expensive for the ordinary Ghanaian.
Yeah. Let me give it this way. The last time when we took over governance, that was January 7, 2009, we met an equally very difficult economy. We met inflation that was 18%, and within a few months has run to over 20%. We met the cedi that had already depreciated by 20%. And the only reason why it stopped at 20% was because the NPP government was desperate and they had to sell Ghana Telecom in order to hold the value of the currency from depreciating further. We're talking about deficits in a huge budget deficit. I think it was about 15+%. In commitment business was about 22%. We're talking about twin deficits at the time, both balance of payment deficit and deficit. So we actually talking about an economy that was massively under challenge. How did we go about it? We did it by ensuring, first and foremost, that we held back on what you call the profligacy that we saw ahead of the 2008 election. And that's one of the things, for example, that President Mahama signaled, that measures that have to do with reduction in expenditure have to be some of the first things you do. That's why you've heard, for example, President Mahama announce that first and foremost, we want to curtail the numbers in governance itself. Right. You want to reduce what you call the number of ministers that you're employing. You want to reduce the number of people that you are employing in the Flagstaff House. You want to hold down government expenditure as a whole. That's a first signal that you want to put in place. Two, you want to hold down what you call the racking up of what you call debt that we've seen. We've seen a government that have taken our total debt from 120 billion that they met, 120 billion that have been accumulated over a period of what you call almost the years all the way to 2016. And within a short period, I mean, they've taken it to God knows where we are today. So you want to ensure.
But we also know where you also took our debt levels from 9 billion to about 122 billion as at 2016.
Yeah, but can you even imagine that? From 9 billion, actually from 10 billion to 120 billion in 8 years. That's 110 in 8 years. Right. And then you are talking about taking it from 120 billion and virtually talking about more than 4 times what they have met within a matter of 8 years. That's absolutely reckless. So if you want to bring back an economy, you are ensuring that that does not happen. Now watch us again. Even when we're in power, Some of the major things that we did, for instance, for example, the expansion that you saw, for example, in our port and harbors, what you saw, for example, with in the Ghana airport, those were massive investment that we did, but we didn't do it on government balance sheet. We did it on the back of what you call the balance sheet of those organizations. It tells you about our capacity to have innovative system that ensure that we do not put too much burden on the taxpayer. So we ensure that those organizations are capable of doing so well that on their own they'll be able to, as it were, raise resources to be able to get the expansion that is done. Those are initiatives that we put in place. Apart from that, we're talking about the kind of efficiency that we put in place that ensure, for example, that cocoa production by the time we were leaving office was almost close to 1 million metric tons, where it was a few years earlier under our watch. Today, as we are talking, cocoa production has come down to as low as less than 400, just about 400,000 metric tons.
That's
almost half
also
of what
attributed to climate change.
It doesn't matter.
And also
it doesn't matter. You carry the what you call the liability, because if climate change had been fine and they were getting 2 million, they'll be taking credit for it. So you don't come and blame nothing. You blame your inefficiency.
Cocoa production go down, even in Ivory Coast.
I'm saying that they have seen cocoa production, which we had left at almost 1 million metric ton, down to where it is today.
Right.
To a situation where the economy today has become a junk economy, never seen in our history. And this all have happened under their watch. Under our watch, we actually managed this economy despite the difficulty, and without even one cedi borrow in the whole of 2016. We left, for example, a currency that depreciated by maximum 9.6% in 2016. Despite all the challenges we faced in that year, resolving doomsday, making sure we brought it to an end, having the massive investment we've seen in every sector of our economy, they cannot even boast about any of that investment, yet they have totally crashed the economy. So in terms of the management of the economy, our record shows that we are people who have the capacity to use very innovative system to be able to get things done without destroying the economy, as we have seen done by this group that is known for a lot of empty slogans. Every minute they come up with a slogan. 1 million constituency for every constituency, $1 million for every constituency, 1V, 1D, what's the name, planting for food and job, all kinds of very empty slogan, but very little gets done. Very little gets done. So that actually will be the difference. And it means also that you need to have what you call a leader who has got experience in governance. And that is President Mahama. Right. Not just experience in terms of having been there as a vice president, who supervised one of the best performing economies in our history, as a president, who supervised some of the most what you call massive investment that have been seen in the history of our country. That experience is critical in order to be able to,
I'm particularly take us to where what you would do to.
I've already mentioned to you
to tame inflation.
I've already told
in particular.
I've told you that one of the first things
to do. Prices of goods skyrocketing, and the Ghanaian is suffering.
Maybe I should repeat it again.
Sure.
I just explained to you that one of the first things you want to do is to work on your expenditure. And the signal you want to give is to start reducing the amount of money you are spending even on the government framework. One of the other things you want to do is to reduce what you call the accumulation of debt. And I told you about the innovations that we put in place in ensuring that we do not, for example, laden public debt. Some of the investment, some of the most massive investment we have, we did not actually have them straight coming onto the government debt. So that innovation helps to take pressure off the economy. And of course, if you are talking about the same group that was able to have cocoa production at the level it was, the same group that was able to add 2 other investments, for example, to our oil production. This government has been in office for 8 years. They've not been able to add even 1 additional oil fields. We were able to have 2 within a space of 4 years. It tells you the levels of innovation we have to be able to make sure things are managed much, much better.
Right.